Our country song and our class a part of the school chorus. We began preparing for this program a few weeks ago in our classroom by learning the words of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's blessed gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Yes, we were learning the words, but it was hard. The words were difficult.
We're so gallantly sweet.
I'm afraid not many understood what the words meant. We couldn't ever learn to sing our country song well if we didn't understand it, could we? So we decided to find out. It was going to take us many days, but we all thought it was worthwhile to really understand our country song. Jimmy was going to find out how our country song was written, and that meant he had to go to the library and read as much as he could to be able to tell us about it. Carol was studying the music so she could play it for our class. While others of us were working making models. And making posters. Before long, our room was filled with our work telling about our country's song and why we show respect for it. We had learned a great deal. We learned that the Star-Spangled Banner is an old song, written during a battle. Of course, the Star-Spangled Banner is our flag. But in those days, the flag looked like this. It had 15 stripes and 15 stars. And in those days, there were fewer states in our country than there are now. Of course, since the very beginning, when our country had only 13 states, we have had songs. One of the earliest songs our countrymen loved and sang was, listen.
Yankee Doodle, kick it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy.
Our country had another song, too. Have you ever heard it? Listen to the melody. Do you know what it is called? Hail Columbia. The music was written for George Washington, our first president. It was written as a march for his inauguration, and words were written for it soon after. Our early countrymen loved the song. And we still sing it today because it is associated with our first president. So even before the Star-Spangled Banner was written, our country had songs that were loved and sung. Our model of the fort helped us understand the story of how the Star-Spangled Banner was written. Let's imagine the story. It was during the War of 1812. Our country was at war with the British. Fort McHenry stood on the shore of Chesapeake Bay protecting the American city of Baltimore. In the harbor lay British warships. The British planned to attack the fort and conquer the city. The attack was to be made at night. On one of the British ships, an American was being held. As night fell, Francis Scott Key began a long and anxious wait. The battle was begun. Who would win? Would the fort fall and the city be lost? By the light of the exploding bombs and the rockets, he could just make out the stars and stripes of our flag still flying over the fort. Before morning, the fighting ended. All was quiet and dark. But who had won? What flag flew over the fort? As the dawn began to break, the words of a poem began to form in Francis Scott Key's mind. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Can you see our flag? He is asking. Is it still flying? The beauty of the flag and what it stands for were very important to him then, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. Then he thought again of the night and the battle, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there, or gave light enough for us to see that our flag was still flying. And then he asked again, oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? In 1931, the Star-Spangled Banner was made our national anthem by act of Congress. And to us today, the song stands for our country, just as our flag does. When we sing it or hear it played, we stand to show our respect for our country. We know that while our flag has grown and changed, our song has come to mean our country to all of us.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alsheimer, and welcome to our lunchtime streaming show. So sometimes you hear our national anthem, and you're basically just you're just mouthing along, and sometimes you hear it and you get a little misty. It's an awkward song. I mean, you could see the kids like trying to figure out the words. And it's written as a bunch of questions, and the melody's lifted from a drinking song, which I think is actually awesome, especially they sing it during baseball games. But, you know, there's something about it that just rings with me sometimes. So, there you go. Our country song. Yeah, so maybe, perhaps, you want to hear a song that you all know, but you've maybe only heard it sung by Bugs Bunny. So here it is by someone who's not Mel Blanc.
Largo il factotum della città, largo. La 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 la. E presto bottega che l'albe già presto. La 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 la. Ah, che bel vivere, che bel piacere, che bel piacere. E per un bar di qualità, e di qualità. Ah, brava tigre, bravo, bravissimo, bravo. La 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 la. E fortunatissima per verità, bravo. La 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 la. Fortunatissima per verità, fortunatissima per verità. La 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 la. Pronta per tutta la natura, sempre di formingo resta in mille cuccagna per mabbiere, mi più nobile non assida. La 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 la. E resta di pettine, lanci di forbici al mio comando tutta questa, e lanci di forbici, resta di pettine al mio comando tutta questa. E la risorsa poi del mestiere. Con il cavaliere, con la donetta, e con il cavaliere, che bel piacere, che bel piacere. barbiere. Di qualità, di qualità. Tutti mi chiedono, e tutti mi vogliono, e sono ragazzi, di vecchie fanciulle, e qua la parecchia, e questa la barba, e qua la sanguigna, e questo biglietto, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, tutti mi chiedono, tutti mi vogliono, qua la parrucca, presto la barba, e questo biglietto, hey! Figaro, 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 ahimè, che furia, ahimè, che folla, una alla volta, per carità, per carità, per carità, una alla volta, una alla volta, una alla volta, per carità. Ehi, Figaro, son qua, Figaro. Sono qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, e Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, e Figaro giù, e prontissimo so come poi me ne sono factotomi dalla città, dalla città, dalla città, dalla città, dalla città. Abra, Figaro bravo, bravissima, Abra, Figaro bravo, bravissima, fortunatissima, 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 per verità. Abra, Figaro bravo, bravissima, Abra, Figaro bravo, bravissima, fortunatissima, 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 per verità. Sono il factotum della città, sono il factotum della città, della città, della città. Bello
Yay! I have a couple of those performances by official films. So, like, I think I have Ave Maria and some other ones. It's not. I won't always bust those out, but that one's pretty fun. I mean, I don't know if any of you were like going like this, like, because I was kind of bouncing along to it because it's a fun song, and obviously the producers of Looney Tunes realized what a fun song it was, and they really capitalized it on Rabbit of Seville. Let's see, boy, we got so many things to watch. Isn't that always the problem? Always having new things to watch. So this next one is it's on. I have it up on the Telecine, and this is based on a Rudyard Kipling short story. This is How the First Letter Was Written.
Once upon a most early time, there was a man named Tegumai. His wife's name was Teshumai, and his daughter was called Taphomai, which means small person with no manners who ought to be spanked. But we will call her Taffy for short. One day, Tegumai took Taffy with him and went down to the Wagai River to spear carpfish for dinner. But before he could catch any fish, he accidentally broke.
It'll take me half a day to mend this.
There's your big black spear at home. Let me run back to the cave and get it.
No, it's too far for your little leg. The beaver swamp and drown.
Gee, I wish there was a way we could tell Mommy to send the other spear.
Never mind. I'll try to mend this one.
All right, Daddy.
Just then, Taffy looked up and saw a stranger man. But he belonged to a far distant tribe, and he didn't understand one word of Taffy's language.
Come here, stranger man. Do you know where my Mommy lives?
Huh?
Oh, silly!
Don't bother grown-ups, Taffy.
I'm not. I only want him to do what I want him to do. And he won't understand.
Well, then don't bother him.
This is a wonderful child. She stamps her feet and makes faces. Must be daughter of that great chief. So great that he pays me no attention.
I want you to go to my Mommy and ask her for Daddy's black spear.
Very wonderful child. Must be angry at me. I give her piece of white birch bark to show I am good man
You want my mommy's address? Of course. I can't write, but I can draw pictures. Please lend me the black shark tooth on your necklace. You don't mind, do you? Now, first I'll draw Daddy fishing. It isn't very much like him, but Mommy will know. And I'll draw his spear all broken. Now, I'll draw the other spear that he wants. It looks as if it was sticking in Daddy's back. But that's because the shark tooth slipped and the piece of bark isn't big enough. Now, I'll draw a picture of myself. My hair doesn't really stand up like that, but it's easier to draw it that way. Now, I'll draw you. I can't make you look as nice as you really look, so don't be angry. There. Now I'll show you how to find our cave. You go around till you come to 2 trees. Those are the trees. And then you go over a hill. That's a hill. And then you come to a beaver swamp, all full of beavers. I can't really draw beavers, so I'll just draw their heads. Then, our cave is just beyond the beaver swamp. I'll draw my mommy standing there outside. Now, you just show this picture to her, and she will give you Daddy's spear. Do you understand?
Understand. Great chief in terrible danger. Enemies all around. Wonderful child has drawn picture to show his troubles. Must get help right away.
So the stranger man ran for miles till quite by accident he found Teshumai at her cave.
Look, girls! This stranger man has stuck my husband with a spear and frightened poor Taffy so that her hair stands on end. And here's another man throwing a spear, and here's a whole pack of bad people.
Oh, devil!
Wait! Before you beat the stranger man to a pulp, let him show us where he's hidden poor Taffy and Tejumai.
Even though the stranger man had a feeling that the names they called him weren't very nice, he led them back to the river.
Uh-oh! The stranger man's brought company.
For goodness sakes, can a man break his spear without the whole tribe descending on him?
Where are the people who speared you, my darling? That man came with this horrible picture that shows you with a spear stuck in your back. And a lot of bad people looking over the hill.
Well, maybe I better explain. I gave the stranger man that picture.
You? Explain.
Well, I wanted the stranger man to fetch Daddy's spear, so I drew it. I can't help if it looks as if it's stuck in Daddy's back. There wasn't room on the birch bark. And those aren't bad people. They're my beavers. And that's Mommy holding Daddy's spear. And I think you are the stupidest people in the whole world. He's a very nice stranger man. Why have you filled his hair with mud? Wash him off!
No, ladies! Wash the mud out of the stranger man's hair, because he's really a very nice man. Let us adopt him into our tribe.
So they washed up the stranger man and took him back to the village.
You know, Taffy, that was a pretty good idea, to send a picture letter.
Only it's too bad I couldn't draw better.
Later, much later, people figured out that it was better to write with words than pictures. But the first letter The very first letter was written by Taffy long ago on the banks of the Wagai River.
June Foray, amazing voice actor. June Foray did the little girl and the woman, and is also, she did Rocket J Squirrel. Did lots and lots and lots of animated voices. Somebody said Paul Frees, and I didn't see a credit for him, but that voice does sound familiar. I can't always place Paul's voice. But it's an interesting film, especially, it's obviously a joke. It's not really talking about the first letter, how the first letter was written, but it makes me think about emojis and people communicating with emojis and how sometimes it doesn't just make sense to me. I mean, this is a generational thing. Obviously, I'm not getting it, but it's a language I don't speak, but it makes me kind of think about that for some reason. I think right now we need to think about our soil.
Off and on during the winter, Chris kept thinking about his land, whether he should change over to soil conservation methods, whether it would reap more production. So when he would take the vegetables and eggs and butter to town, he got into the habit of asking friends and neighbors about conservation. Like any good farmer, Chris wanted to find out all he could about the new methods before he tried them out. Meanwhile, the Mussers were all busy with their regular daily chores, thinking. And that's what Chris Musser was doing. At harvest time that year, he knew that some of his neighbors had taken to plowing across their sloping land, along the contour, to save soil and water, and their crops had turned out better too. But as a boy, Chris had learned to plow a straight row, straight as an arrow. It's hard to break an old habit like this, even when you know that straight rows waste your land and hurt it. With every hard rain, the water pours downhill, down the rows, and washes soil along with it. Sooner or later, that means trouble. But it was fall, and harvest time was a busy time. In the evenings, Chris worked long hours at his desk. There were records to keep, plans to make for the year ahead. He read reports on conservation farming, too, how it was done, and how it increased production. For production is the big farm job always. And then one night later on, Chris called on some old friends. He told them he was finally convinced, by what he had read and by talking with his neighbors, that conservation farming would increase his production and protect his soil at the same time. He said he was ready to try it and wanted to know if he could get help in doing the job. His friends were the supervisors of the York Soil Conservation District, elected by the farmers to encourage soil conservation and see that it was carried out in a sensible, practical way. They agreed to provide him with a conservation map of his land from the Soil Conservation Service to get him started off on the right foot. All the rest of the winter, as he worked in the woods, Chris was thinking of his snow-covered land, picturing his fields with the new rows on the contour and the strip cropping, and he was counting, too, on the better production he would get through soil conservation. the middle of April, the ground was ready to work. Melvin Blish, the Soil Conservation Service technician, was on hand with a conservation map of the farm, a map which he and Chris had worked out earlier, which showed the kind of soil, the slope and erosion, and the conservation needs of every field. Never before had Chris known the physical facts about his farm in such detail. He looked over the land again, marked out in his mind where the contour rows would be and how the crops would look. Chris had taken the first 2 steps in soil conservation. He had learned the facts about his land, and he had decided to put each acre into the kind of crop it was best suited to produce, whether that be grass or grain, row crops or trees. Marking off contour lines came next, and that required a level. A small pocket model would do. Some farmers use a carpenter's level. It doesn't have to be shiny or expensive. To prove it, Chris had made a very good level out of wood and 2 screw eyes. The horizontal bar was nailed at right angles to the longer hanging bar, and the whole device swung freely on a round wooden pin made from a broomstick handle. Simple, isn't it? The whole business of contouring is simple. All you need is a good eye, a level, a few dozen stakes, and somebody to help place them. Here's how Chris did it. Beginning at the side of the field, the first stake was driven into the ground. Then Gordon, with a few more stakes, paced off about 30 feet across the field at right angles to the downward slope. Holding one of the stakes, he faced back toward his father. And Chris, sighting along the top of his homemade level, waved him first to the right and then back a bit, until he could see the peak of Gordon's cap in a direct line through the 2 screw eyes. That was the spot for the second marker. Then, with Chris moving over to the second stake and Gordon pacing off another 30 feet across the field, they began the same process all over again. It didn't take long. Within an hour, the stakes marking the first contour row were in the ground. Furrows running along this line would be level all the way across the field. Level rows act as little dams, each one slowing the downhill movement of soil and water. And that's the object of contouring, to keep water from pouring downhill every time it rains. By slowing the water, you prevent the soil, seed, and fertilizer from washing away. And when you do that, your crops are bound to be better. It isn't necessary to place stakes for every contour row. On gently rolling land like this, you only need to sight, stake out the contour about once in each 100 feet of slope. And once the contour line is marked out, you can plow a furrow or 2 along the stakes as a guide for the next line. Plowing or any other operation along the contour isn't hard at all. Most farmers find it saves time, saves fuel, because there's less gear shifting. Operations are easier on the contour. Chris was taking a crop from land that had lost little or no soil, seed, or fertilizer in the spring rains. There had been no replanting to do either, and that had meant savings in time, labor, and money. Of corn, thick-growing barley across the slope now held the soil in place. The contour rows of potatoes and soybeans were coming along very nicely. And on the steepest land, too steep to cultivate, hay had taken the place of row crops. There's no more erosion here. In the cornfield, contour rows were holding back water so it could be stored in the soil for the young crop. The straight rows on this field last year wasted water, saved little for the corn. With water stored in the soil by conservation, corn production went up. Even though rainfall was less than half of normal, Chris got more corn from 28 acres this year than he did from 33 acres last year. The potato fields told the same story. Precious water stored in the soil brought the crop through in fine shape, well above the county average. Well, that's the story. Chris Musser and Spring Run Farm happen to be in Pennsylvania, but almost the same story could be told about farmers and the land in Georgia or Minnesota, Oregon or Utah, Arkansas or Nebraska. All over the country, soil conservation is increasing production, increasing it now when we need it most. And soil conservation is protecting our land against erosion, conserving it for our own use and our children's use for years to come.
There you go. Everything you ever wanted to know about soil conservation. Yeah, that's your standard USDA film. That's for sure. Let's see. I got another film up on the telecine here. In case you don't know, we show old 16mm films, and sometimes I play them back from a file of something I've already digitized, and sometimes we put it up on the machine and we let it roll, which means that I can pull films that I haven't digitized in the past and we can watch them live. And some films I've not seen before. This one I have, and it's pretty great because it has a song about the environment, and it's not Uncle Smiley. So here we go. This is How About It? Let me find the right thing. Here we go. How About It? Oh, I should say before I get started, if you like what you're watching, or you mildly are amused by it, hit like or subscribe or notification. Get notifications, make comments, share this with people. Those are ways that you can help AV Geeks. Another way is you can just buy us coffee, because we like coffee. That's what kind of percolates the brain and keeps us going through the tedium and wakes us up in the morning, etc. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other things that we've done. You can buy DVDs of past shows that we've done, stuff like that. All right, here we go. How about it?
We love the land, says Robin. Love the land, says Richard the Robin. We love the land, says Jack of us, everyone. Love, oh love, says Robin the Bobbin. Oh love, oh love, says Richie the Robin. What should should we do? Asks Richie the Robin. What should we do? Asks Jack of the farm. What should we do? Asks everyone. Do, asks Robin the Bobbin. Oh, do, asks Richie the Robin. Do, asks Jack of the farm. Do, ask everyone. We love the land, says Robin the Bobbin. We love the land, says Richie the Robin. We love the land, says Jack of the farm. We love the land, says everyone. Oh, beautiful gracious God, forever when the rain, for purple mountains majesty,
So I didn't realize that it had America the Beautiful in it. It's kind of quaint to watch, kind of patriotic to watch just litter that you can easily just kind of pick up and put into a trash can. So the filmmakers, I don't know if they look familiar, but I have shown other films from them. In particular, And Then It Happened. No, I'm sorry, no, that's totally wrong. Not And Then It Happened. It is another triggering film called The Day I Died, and All My Tomorrows, which are phenomenal, over-the-top, ham-fisted stories about teenagers who drink too much or OD on drugs and narrate what has happened to themselves. And all the footage is in slow motion. So they really fascinating filmmakers, and maybe they probably did some more stuff for ACI. I'll have to keep an eye out. We don't always have the luxury of seeing who actually made the film, getting a credit. So when we do, I try to take notice and try to write it in my database. Yeah. Right, so this next film is part of the Coronet collection that we've been digitizing. And it's beautiful color. Holy cow. Sometimes this is part of the collection that they would rent out or lend out for schools to say, like, this is for you to review. So ideally they weren't supposed to be shown in the classroom. Like, they were shown to school boards and librarians and people that purchase films for a school. And sometimes in this collection, there's stuff that's just stunning, and it's obvious it hasn't been shown that often. And then there's stuff that looks like it was beat to hell. So, and what's also interesting in some of the school collections that I've collected, I've run across these, what they call preview prints, which tells me that they requested the film and then they never really returned it. So, that's kind of interesting. So here's Make Your Own Decisions.
And what happens if we don't make our own decisions? Let's see.
Oh, hi, Sis. Can I go to the show with Tom and Chuck?
The show? Well, I don't know.
You don't know? Mom said I should check with you when she's not home.
Yes, but the show. You might get home late. Mother'd be mad. Of course, if you went right away. But it's a double feature.
Come on, Sis. Make up your mind. The kids are waiting.
Well?
Can I go or can't I?
No, then. You can't go to the show, and don't ask me again.
Okay, Jane. I'll just play ball for a while instead, okay?
Yes, but be home in time for supper.
Okay.
Hello, Sue. About Friday night. I'll be there. You can count on me. Bye.
And when you do make your own decisions, you feel good. Even if your decisions are not the best, they give you a sense of assurance.
You do make some of your own decisions. And as you grow and mature, you'll be making more of them. I'm glad you're thinking about that, Jane.
And while you're about it, you really ought to decide about your summer vacation.
Summer vacation?
I talked to Mr. Rugen today, and he says he can give you a job in his store this summer if you want it.
A job?
But, Jane, you were talking about taking that special art course this summer. Have you decided about that?
Well, no, not exactly. That is, a job. Art course. I'm sort of confused. I just don't know. Mom, what should I do?
Ha, ha, ha. Run to Mother. I'm not a baby anymore. Ha, ha, ha. I'm not a baby anymore. Run to Mother. Ha, ha, ha.
After all, I'm not a baby anymore. I'm not a baby anymore. I'm not a baby anymore.
Can you make your own decisions? Decisions you can live with? Do you know how? Perhaps if you think about decisions, think about people you've seen making decisions. Bill sometimes decides things, but somehow that doesn't seem a very grown-up way of making decisions. Think of someone else. Think of Martha and how she decided what courses to take.
Shall I register you for the commercial law course next term? What other choices do I have? Well, you could say...
What choices do I have? Let's figure this out. Perhaps you can write down some of these ideas. Let's see. Whenever you have to make a decision, ask yourself, what choices do I have? Make sure you know the alternatives and find out as much as you can about each. Then what else should you ask before you make a decision?
Oh, say, Tom, are you going out for the team this year? Well, I don't know. How soon do I have to decide? Well, we're going to start...
How soon do I have to decide? That's a good question to ask yourself. Make it, when should I decide? For some decisions should be made immediately and disposed of. Others may better be delayed until you can think them through enough. And there's another important question to ask. See if you can find it here.
Well, I guess they fit, and they certainly do look nice. But, will they wear well?
Why, yes, the soles are... Did you find the next question to ask yourself before you make a decision? It's this. What information do I need? You'll want to be sure you have all the important facts bearing on your decision. You'll want to weigh those facts. Sometimes you'll want the advice and opinions of others. But there's still another step. As Jane thinks through another incident, see if you can discover the final step in making decisions.
All right. Are we agreed then that we do want to have decorations at the party?
Mm-hmm. Yes, fine.
Well, let's get started then.
What is the final step in making a decision? Decide, then act. For what is a decision without action? Let's see, what are those steps now? Ask yourself, what choices do I have? When should I decide? What information do I need? Finally, decide, then act on your decision. Let's see how well Jane applies these steps.
Dad,
Oh, yes, Jane. What is it, dear?
about that job. Well, I think I should consider all the choices for a summer vacation. Don't you?
Well, yes, I think you have to do that if you expect to make the right decision.
What choices do you have, dear?
What choices do I have? Well, there's a job, there's that special art course, and there's an opening for an assistant camp counselor. Or I could just loaf.
Now ask Mama what to do.
Will be enough, Bill.
But, Mom, I do want your advice. Only first, I think I should know when I have to make the decision. I've got about a month to think about the other things, but... Well, when do I have to decide about the job at Mr. Rugen's store?
Well, he'll want time to find someone else if you don't want the job. I should think he'd want to know by Monday at least.
But will that be long enough, dear? I think so. But I'd like to know more about that job. I want to make the best decision I can in the time I have. After all, I'm going to have to live with it all summer long. I think I'll go down and talk to Mr. Rugen tomorrow.
Yes, there are skills for making your own decisions. They are not easy at first, but with each decision you make, you will learn something that will help you with the ones ahead. Learn to obtain the important information for each decision you make. Be sure you have enough information on the various alternatives. Obtain your information and your advice as soon as possible, giving yourself the time you need to think through all the possibilities, weigh the choices, and decide. When you have decided, take action. For whether your decisions are the best ones or not, they're yours. Keep them your own. Accept responsibility for them. You'll be a more mature person and a happier one as you learn to make your own decisions.
Things just look better in Kodachrome, man. I really just, it stuns me sometimes. I mean, I have to deal with so many film prints that have faded that when I see one that is beautiful color, regardless of what the message is, I'm just more excited about it. It's ludicrous to say that, but yeah. So, all right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I got one last little thing I'll show you. Kind of the 70s are a fond time for me because that's when I grew up, and so here are some assorted television PSAs from that time period. I might have shown some of these before, but this is a different comp, so here we go.
Last year, over 2 million children were victims of poisoning. I'm Dr. Jay Arena of the Duke University Medical Center. Poisoning is the most common medical emergency among young children. When you realize how many products in your home are potentially dangerous, you can understand why we have this problem. Medication should not be taken in front of your child. Natural curiosity leads children to imitate what their parents do. Keep all medicines and poisons out of your youngsters' reach and sight. Check product labels, and don't keep a miniature drugstore in your home. Although children are often victims of fate, they should never be victims of our neglect.
No, Miss Brooks. Oh, hello. I'm Osgood Conklin. I'm Gail Gordon. Some of you may remember me as Osgood Conklin, principal of Madison High School. Well, in those days, teachers nearing retirement age worried about the problems of reaching maturity and falling out of the mainstream of society. They needed the information and services of a national organization like the National Retired Teachers Association. NRTA provides benefits and services like group health insurance, great travel plans, life insurance, and the convenience of buying prescriptions and medical supplies by mail, postage paid. Those are some of the things NRTA does for you. For more information about the National Retired Teachers Association, write to me, Gail Gordon, NRTA, Washington, D.C. No!
Children, the Salvation Army loves them. I'm Betsy Palmer here at a Salvation Army camp where youngsters from crowded city streets can explore another world. A place to do new things, to live and work with others, to be young and alive and full of hope. Salvation Army camps are places where young people discover new horizons. If you can help, send a check to the Salvation Army Camp Appeal. If you need help, call the Salvation Army.
Young Americans,
our most important natural resource. They are the future. Now you can invest in that future. Youth groups across the country are competing for prizes in the current Help Young America campaign. Competing by initiating projects that serve you. They're trying to earn your respect and your vote. Cast your ballot now in the Help Young America campaign. If your favorite group wins one of the Help Young America grants, you may win a better community.
Remember the good old days? Where did all the children go? Born too small, too soon, without medical knowledge to save their little lives. Today, we know that good prenatal care, early and often, can make the difference between life and death. Be good to your baby before it is born. Words of wisdom from the March of Dimes.
Are you taking the simple steps that will safeguard your family from respiratory disease after you turn the thermostat down? Colds and flu are expected to be more prevalent than ever this year of shortages. To protect your children, have your heating plan checked to make sure it's producing maximum warmth with minimum waste. Close room doors. Small spaces heat more efficiently than large. Dress them warmly and restrict their play to the warmest spot in the house. Install storm doors and use them. Automatic closing devices will keep them well sealed. Remember that glass has no insulating properties of its own. Insulated drapery linings are a must to keep outside weather outside. Draw them at night. Keep them open on sunny days to take advantage of solar heat. Shortages notwithstanding, you can keep home a good place to come home to.
I'm Nancy Wilson. Today, crippled children and adults can look forward to a brighter future. Easter seals give them the care and treatment they need to overcome their handicaps. You too can help to make a lot of happy tomorrows. I hope you'll give to Easter seals. Please.
Hello, I'm Betsy Palmer, and over 30,000 Girl Guards and Sunbeams of the Salvation Army are beginning their annual candy sale. These girls in their red and gray uniforms will be selling candy at transportation terminals, shopping centers, and businesses, and also at your door. When the Girl Guards and Sunbeams call on you, give them your support. The money they earn from your purchases will be used for camp scholarships, troop equipment, uniforms, and field trips. Every dollar package of delicious candy that you buy will help the Salvation Army in its goal to instill in these girls a love for God and country. You'll be helping also to build sound character and healthy bodies, and you'll be lending a hand to young people who have a program of service to others. So, welcome the Girl Guards and the Sunbeams when they knock on your door. Their candy is great, and so is their program. We thank you.
I have never heard of the Girl Guides, the Salvation Army Girl Guides, and their delicious candy. I'm sure I would have bought it if I knew about it, as I am a fan of delicious candy and supporting girls' programs. I have loaded up. I have spent an inordinate amount of money on Girl Scout cookies so far. Thankfully, I've just done donations for daughters of friends who do not live in the area, but we have loaded up on some cookies. So, big fan. Anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in today. I hope that I will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock. What do I got coming up? I'm going to actually be recording something with the Found Footage Festival guys tonight that I think will be shown on Saturday or 2 Saturdays from now. I'm not sure what it is, but we're going to be talking about the history of Sugar Bear, of the Sugar Crisp cereal, its mascot, and his long rise and fall I'm a fan. I wrote an article with film professor Devin Orgeron about the history of Sugar Bear and about sugared cereal advertising in general. So that'll be tonight, and then I'll let you know tomorrow when it's going to be shown. Everybody have a good rest of your day. It's beautiful outside here, and I hope that you have rays of sunshine and hope and happiness in your lives today. Reach out to your friends, your family, to make sure they're doing okay. I appreciate your kind words yesterday. I was a little down, so thank you for that. As always, please rewind, love each other, and I will see you again tomorrow. Everybody take care.